The air in the arena was electric. It wasn't just noise, it was a physical pressure. Thousands of people united by a single, desperate hope. For months, the landscape had felt empty, a throne left cold and unoccupied. The shows continued. The machine kept moving, but the heart was gone. They missed their dominant force, their mommy. Every week, rumors would swirl. "Tonight's the night," the internet would whisper, and every week they were met with disappointment. But this time felt different. The tension was palpable. You could see it in the homemade signs. "We miss you, Mommy." "Welcome back, Rhea." They weren't just fans. They were a congregation waiting for a miracle. And then the lights went out. A collective gasp, a momentary vacuum of sound, was replaced by a guttural roar that seemed to shake the building's foundation. The opening chords of her theme song hit, a blast of defiant energy. The crowd erupted. This was it. This was real. She emerged from the darkness, bathed in a spotlight, looking every bit the icon they remembered. The leather, the confidence, the smirk that said, "Did you miss me?" She walked that ramp not like someone returning from an injury, but like a queen returning to her castle, surprised to find the peasants had left the gates open. She slid into the ring, soaking it all in. The chants of "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy" washed over her. She was home. The nightmare was back. Rhea Ripley raised the microphone to her lips, the crowd quieting just enough to hear her speak. The smile on her face was genuine, a rare crack in her usually impenetrable armor. She was about to thank them, to reclaim her space, to announce her intentions. But before a single word could escape, a different song cut through the arena. The music was chaotic, disjointed, familiar. The crowd's cheers faltered, turning into a murmur of confusion. Out walked Liv Morgan. Her revenge tour had been a dark, unpredictable storm, but now? Here? Liv walked slowly, methodically. She wasn't wearing her usual ring gear. She was in street clothes, a hoodie pulled low. But the most unsettling part was her smile. It was wide, bright, and utterly devoid of warmth. Rhea's hand, still holding the mic, lowered slightly. Her expression hardened. This was not a friendly reunion. Liv entered the ring, and the two women stared at each other. The silence was deafening. Liv slowly, dramatically, opened her arms. A hug. "Welcome back," she seemed to mouth. The crowd was frozen. Rhea, wary, took a step, and then another. She completed the embrace. For a split second, the arena exhaled. Maybe it was an alliance. Maybe the tour was over. Boom. The sickening sound of a steel chair, wrapped in duct tape, colliding with Rhea's spine. And again, Liv didn't just attack, she brutalized. The crowd didn't even boo. They just gasped. It was a single, unified sound of horror. It's often said that the loudest sound in wrestling isn't the cheer, it's the silence. For a full 10 seconds after Rhea collapsed, 20,000 people made no noise at all. It was the collective processing of a deep, profound violation. You don't do that. You don't interrupt a return. This wasn't just a heel move. It was a desecration of a sacred moment. The camera panned across the front row. A young girl, her mommy sign now crumpled in her lap, was openly weeping. A grown man, his face painted, just stared, mouth agape, hands on his head. This wasn't part of the show. It couldn't be. Then, the first sound. A single guttural boo from the upper deck. It was a sound of pure, undiluted hatred. It was quickly joined by another and another until the entire arena cascaded down on Liv Morgan in a tidal wave of rejection. Medics and officials swarmed the ring, their movements frantic, creating a shield around the fallen Rhea. But Liv didn't flee. She stood in the center of the ring, the chair still in her hand. She looked at the crying girl. She looked at the booing men. And she smiled. She picked up the microphone Rhea had dropped, breathed into it heavily, and let out a high, cold, echoing laugh. It cut through the anger like glass. She had ruined their moment, and she loved it. The second Liv's chair made contact. The backstage area, the gorilla position, descended into pure chaos. Headsets were screaming. Producers, who moments before had been celebrating a successful, emotional return, were now throwing their scripts down in fury. Was she cleared for that? Who allowed the chair? Get her out of there! The plan was shattered. The meticulously crafted narrative for the next 6 months had just been thrown in a shredder. This wasn't the welcome back segment. This was an assault. The camera, momentarily forgotten by the director, caught a glimpse of Dominic Mysterio sprinting down the ramp, his face a mask of genuine panic and rage, pushing past security who tried to hold him back. This was the unseen consequence of anarchy. The line between performance and reality had not just been blurred, it had been erased with malice. Social media wasn't just buzzing, it was a wildfire of confusion and anger. Is Rhea really hurt? Fire Liv Morgan. The machine that prints money and creates heroes just had a catastrophic failure. And in the center of it, authority figures were already arguing. The story was no longer about a hero's return. It was about a villain's message. To understand the sheer cruelty of the act, you have to understand the why. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a masterpiece of patient, psychological warfare. We, the audience, had forgotten. We were so wrapped up in the excitement of Mommy's return that we conveniently erased the memory of why she left. Months ago, it was Rhea Ripley who put Liv Morgan on the shelf. It was Rhea who took her momentum, her spot, her health. We saw it as a necessary casualty of a dominant champion. Liv saw it as a theft. While Rhea was recovering, Liv was festering. She sat at home, watching the woman who injured her become an even bigger icon. She watched the "We Miss Mommy" signs, and she plotted. The Liv Morgan Revenge Tour wasn't just about winning matches. It was about taking everything back piece by piece. She could have attacked Rhea in the parking lot. She could have challenged her to a match next week, but that was too simple. That was just business. This was personal. She waited for the one moment Rhea was vulnerable, not physically, but emotionally. She waited for the peak of her joy, the second she felt the love of the crowd, the exact instant she felt safe. And that is when she struck. The message wasn't just, "I'm back." The message was, "You will never feel safe again." The next 48 hours were a firestorm. The wrestling world, from podcasters to veterans, was completely divided. One camp was apoplectic. "You've broken the code," one Hall of Famer said on his show. "There are some things you just don't do. You let the talent have their return. You let the fans have their moment. What Liv did wasn't good heel work. It was selfish. It was bad for business." They argued that it broke the illusion, that it violated the unwritten contract between the performers and the audience. It was too real, too cruel, and it poisoned the well. But another quieter camp argued the exact opposite. "This is exactly what wrestling has been missing," a rival promoter tweeted. It felt real. It felt dangerous. This camp believed that modern wrestling had become too predictable, too sterile, too safe. Liv's ambush was a jolt of pure, uncut anarchy. It made us feel something. We didn't just boo a character. We felt genuine hatred for the act. Liv hadn't just crossed a line. She had drawn a new one, reminding everyone that this world is supposed to be about conflict, not just choreography. She had exposed the vulnerability of the entire spectacle, and in doing so, had become the only thing anyone wanted to talk about. Now think about Rhea Ripley. Her entire identity, her entire mommy persona, is built on a foundation of absolute, unshakable dominance. She is the predator. She is the one in control. She dictates the pace, the terms, and the outcome. In any interaction, she is the one with the power. But in that one moment, with a steel chair cracking against her back, she was none of those things. She was helpless. She was a victim. And 20,000 people in the arena with millions watching at home, saw her in that state of total vulnerability. The nightmare was, for a moment, just a person, hurt and confused on the floor. The physical injuries, the doctors said, would heal. But the psychological damage, that was the real story. The next time Rhea's music hits, will that same dominant smirk be there? Or will she be looking over her shoulder? Will she hesitate before entering the ring? Liv Morgan didn't just attack Rhea's body. She attacked her aura. She planted a seed of doubt, not just in the minds of the fans, but in the mind of Rhea herself. The pressure on her was no longer just to win matches and defend her title. The pressure was to prove that she wasn't, in fact, broken. And then, the strangest thing happened. The following week, when Liv Morgan's chaotic music hit, the boos were deafening. They were a wall of pure vitriol. But as the camera panned the crowd, something else was visible. Amidst the angry faces and the thumbs-down gestures, there were smiles. There were people cheering. Not in support of her, perhaps, but in support of the chaos she represented. In the front row, someone held up a brand-new homemade t-shirt. It just said, "Live, Laugh, Love," with a picture of the steel chair. The shock had worn off, and what was left behind was a dark, twisted fascination. The audience had processed the violation, and a terrifying segment of them liked it. Liv had done the unforgivable, and she had done it with such confidence that she became the most compelling, must-see character on the entire roster. People weren't tuning in to see her lose. They were tuning in to see what she would do next. We, the audience, in our secret desire for anarchy, had become complicit. We wanted the monster, and Liv was more than happy to give her to us. The title of this story, the one that flashed across social media and on the video packages, was "She is Back Forever." It was a simple, celebratory phrase, meant entirely for Rhea Ripley. It was supposed to signify her return to the top, her permanent place in the main event. But that one act of violence, that one cold, empty smile from Liv Morgan, changed the meaning of that statement forever. The night was no longer about Rhea's return. It was about Liv's arrival. The she in that title had been stolen. This one moment, this ambush, now defines them both. Their careers are no longer on parallel tracks. They are intertwined, knotted together by the memory of that steel chair. Rhea Ripley's legacy is no longer just the nightmare's unstoppable reign. It is now the reign interrupted. It is the humiliation. Her story will always carry that asterisk. And Liv Morgan is no longer the plucky underdog or the girl next door. She is the architect. She is the homewrecker. She's the one who waited in the dark and ruined the party. There is no going back from this. The word forever now feels less like a celebration and more like a sentence. They are trapped in this narrative together. We came that night as fans expecting a simple story. We wanted a celebration. We wanted to cheer, to cry happy tears, and to feel the simple, cathartic joy of a hero's return. We wanted to see the legend Rhea Ripley step back into her yard and reclaim her throne. But we were shown something else. We were shown a mirror. We were shown the uncomfortable truth about what we really crave from this spectacle. We don't just want heroes. We want conflict. We want drama. We want stakes that feel real enough to hurt. The true, legendary return that night wasn't Rhea Ripley walking down the ramp. It was the return of consequence. It was the return of patient, long-term hatred in a world of instant gratification. The most shocking part of the entire ordeal wasn't the sound of the chair. It wasn't the boos or the tears. It was the moment, a week later, when we saw the new t-shirts in the crowd. The shock was realizing that deep down, the part of us that loves this world was, in its own dark way, cheering for Liv. We thought we were watching a welcome back party, but we were actually attending a funeral for one character and the terrifying, legendary birth of another.